Good morning. Hi, my name is Carmen Nicole Cox. I am the proud Director of Government Affairs for ACLU California Action. And we appreciate you all being here this morning so that you can better understand why it is that there are more than 20 organizations, not all of whom could be here on Wednesday morning, sort of last minute, but more than 20 organizations that are in strong opposition, reaching out to the governor's office, reaching out to the budget negotiators in the legislature, all trying to defeat this trailer bill language that has the ultimate effect of unwinding a very important part of SB 2, and that is the transparency component. Transparency that you get through records created at the local level, as well as records created at the state level. So this morning, you are going to hear first from Marshall Arwine, who is Legal Policy Manager for ACLU Northern California. And then you're going to hear from Mayor Pro Tem Tamisha Torres Walker of the City of Antioch. I'll come back to you and talk just a little bit about trailer bill language and the implications of the TBL we are opposing today. And we're going to close out with some remarks from Jay Vasquez, who is Policy and Legal Manager at Courage, one of the co-sponsors of SB 2. And I will pass it to Marshall.
Good morning. My name is Marshall Arwine. I'm the legal policy advocate for the ACLU of Northern California. Today, I will be sharing the important historical context of SB 2, which is also known as the Kenneth Ross Jr. Police Decertification Act of 2021. Kenneth Ross Jr. was a beloved son, father, brother, and friend who tragically lost his life to police violence. He was only 25 years old when he was tragically killed by the Gardena Police Department. His death prompted the urgent call to police reform. The officer who shot Kenneth Ross Jr. was involved in at least 3 other police shootings prior to killing Kenneth Ross Jr. We cannot ever forget the lives lost, precious lives lost, when discussing SB 2. As a positive sign of accountability, SB 2 was approved by the California legislatures in 2021 and signed into law in 2022 by the governor to create a pathway for decertification of officers. The decertification process is simply removing officers' ability to have their badge and to be able to go from one police department to the next police department without transparency and accountability. SB 2 increased transparency and accountability for police who engage in criminal activity, such as abusing their power and participating in serious misconduct, by providing the public with access to records and evidence of the investigations. When activists, lawyers, lawmakers, and law enforcement negotiated SB 2, they added a critical provision stating that all records during decertification proceedings shall be public. This means that POST, the agency responsible for conducting the decertification proceedings, must respond to public records requests. California has historically had harsh sentencing and a high number of killings of unarmed community members. If our legislatures and governor are sincere in their heart in committing to help restoring public trust and confidence, then transparency is a non-negotiable part of the process. Decertifying bad actors and police who commit crimes like sexual abuse, abuse of power, falsifying evidence, and violence is simply a no-brainer. Without SB 2, police who break the law and abuse their power can resign and apply to work in another police department, or they can simply retire without being held accountable. We must rebuild the trust in the public for the community to understand that no one is above the law, even law enforcement, so that all communities feel safe. After the world witnessed the murder of George Floyd in 2020, the public demanded more accountability and transparency for police officers that were bad actors and who break their oath to protect and serve. I speak not as someone who just simply has knowledge of the law, not as someone who's seen misconduct on TV or out of a book that I've read, but I personally have been a victim of police misconduct, harassment, with no accountability and no transparency. So I speak with passion today, urging our elected officials and public representatives to be committed to do their part to ensure public safety for all and address discrimination, racism, and misconduct. The governor and California legislatures must follow through with their commitment to maintaining transparency and accountability. Thank you. So now I'm going to transition to hand over the mic to Mayor Pro Tem of Antioch, Tamisha Torres Walker.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Tamisha Torres Walker. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Safe Return Project, a community organizer and activist, a mother and a grandmother, and a member of the Lift Up Contra Costa Coalition called LUP. I'm going to read this statement because I think it's so important to capture the moment that we're in right now. A few months ago in the city of Antioch, where I currently sit as the Mayor Pro Tem, an investigative report conducted by the FBI and the Contra Costa District Attorney uncovered a massive chain of racist and violent texts involving 45 of the city's 99 sworn officers. That's over half the Antioch Police Department. We are currently in the throes of a moral crisis, not just in Antioch, but throughout the state of California. The joint investigation uncovered a decade-long trail of corruption, abuse, intimidation, and falsification of evidence by the Antioch Police Department. And the Antioch Police Department didn't act alone. In fact, they colluded and conspired with nearby law enforcement agencies, Internal Affairs Department in Antioch, and the city of Brentwood, and the city of Pittsburgh, and the Federal Post Office law enforcement officers. The intent behind these inflammatory and racist communications illustrates law enforcement's intentional and concerted efforts to deliberately commit and cover up coordinated attacks against Black and brown residents. In various communications discovered, these officers wrote in great detail how they have assaulted, beaten, lied, and falsified testimonials and evidence to incarcerate Black and brown residents. It's also relevant to mention that the concerns go beyond local street officers, but spread throughout the entire department, where of the 45 officers who participated in these criminal acts, 16 members of the Antioch Police leadership can be seen encouraging this behavior, as well as colluding with multiple departments, including the Internal Affairs Department. This is not a situation of a few bad apples, but this is a pattern of a practice of culture of police officers who have not been held accountable, believe they are above the law, and regularly engage in misconduct, racism, and criminal activity that has gone unchecked for more than 10 years. Had the records related to the investigation not been made public, this scandal would have never been uncovered. And the criminal acts demonstrated by the Antioch Police Department and other neighboring law enforcement agencies would have gone unchecked and continue to target and harm Black and brown members of our community. That's why we are looking forward to the full implementation of Senate Bill 2. Governor Newsom and our public representatives know that Senate Bill 2 is a required step in the right direction to transform what public safety means for all Californians and a necessary step towards getting bad cops off our streets. It is terrifying and traumatic to think about what other information we don't know, simply because traditionally police records have been sealed and not available to the public and sometimes destroyed. These are valid and reasonable examples of why Black and brown communities do not trust the system of policing. It is time to move our communities forward towards peace and healing. So we are calling on Governor Newsom, the budget representatives, and anyone who remains committed to and believes that the integrity of justice should be upheld for everyone. Join us to rebuild public trust and ensure transparency. The days of police unions and dark money lobbyists bullying our legislators are over. Take a stand and do what you committed to do. Do what is right. And let's heal our communities and build a brighter, safer California for everyone. Thank you.
The trailer bill language, the reason we're here right now today, as you all know, the legislature is voting this morning on the budget bill, on the main budget bill. It's important that we're here right now talking today about trailer bill language so that we all understand what it's supposed to be used for and what it's not supposed to be used for. Trailer bill language is supposed to implement provisions of the budget. The budget allocates dollars to what we believe as Californians is good policy and under this administration should favor all of California. However, when trailer bill language is hijacked and the process is used instead to implement the kinds of policy that you would not be able to move through policy committee, it is wrong. In this circumstance, the trailer bill language does not implement the budget bill. In fact, what this trailer bill language says is Post, who now is the only agency, the only state agency that will get the entire universe of records around officer misconduct, this language says they will not have to provide those records. That is not the appropriate use of trailer bill language. What is happening here is that the administration is moving forward, endorsing a policy in the dark that actually puts records of police officer misconduct in the dark. We cannot use a secret policy in order to ensure more in order to remove police transparency. We cannot do that in the dark. All we're saying is we cannot do that in the dark. You will hear from Jay all of the stakeholders who negotiated under the light of day to reach the end deal of SB 2. We cannot allow trailer bill language that does nothing in the way of implementing the budget bill to actually roll back all of that work and to do it without any of the input from the stakeholders and certainly without any input from the communities that are most likely to be harmed. This is not what trailer bill language is for. We are asking everyone who has the opportunity to vote on it, everyone who has the opportunity to speak on it, and we're certainly asking the governor to stand down, reject this trailer bill language. If there's anything that has to be done, it should be done in the light of day as SB 2 was negotiated, in the light of day with stakeholders who have lives on the line. I'm gonna pass it to Jay Vasquez from Courage, who can speak to you tell you more about all of the negotiations that had to happen to secure this deal that ensured that we would have not just accountability, but transparency in the process of decertifying officers who engage in serious misconduct.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Carmen. My name is Jay Vasquez. I'm the Policy and Legal Services Manager for Communities United for Restorative Justice, which was one of the organizations that co-sponsored first SB 731, which eventually did not make it. We started over with SB 2. And, you know, my heart hurts today because this was a multi-year process just to get SB 2 passed. And there's so many family members that supported that effort, that worked for that effort, so many other really passionate community organizers, and I want to bring those organizations into the space that also co-sponsored SB 2, because we went through a lot to get it to where, you know, we felt it was comfortable and safe to get the governor's signature. And now we have this last minute back room, looks like a deal or some type of, secret to basically dismantle a huge portion of what we intended the decertification process to look like. First, I do want to say that SB 2 was co-sponsored by the Let Us Live Coalition, which was led by families whose loved ones have been killed by law enforcement. And there was no accountability for that. And that was the context for pushing to get decertification here in California, which at the time, California was only one of 4 states in the nation that did not have a decertification process. We're supposed to be leaders here. We're one of 4 states that did not have a decertification process, so we thought it was important that California should have that process. And the family members who lost loved ones who were stolen by state violence knew that they needed a process to have those officers held accountable, because they were not being held accountable through other means, through the DA's office, things like that, because the relationships the police department usually have with the DA's office. I will say that there was other organizations. I want to uplift them and bring those organizations to the space who were not able to be here today, because this was a last-minute thing that's being snuck into the trailer bill, and I think that was intentional, for sure. So I do want to bring other people into the space, organizations, Alliance for Boys and Men of Color, ACLU California Action, the Anti-Police Terror Project, Black Lives Matter of California, California Families United for Justice, Policy Link, the Stop Coalition, and the Youth Justice Coalition. And I want to say that because these organizations and with different community members, they put a lot of sweat, a lot of our effort and energy to getting this bill passed, which was not by any means an easy effort, especially when you have the Police Officers Association fighting us tooth and nail tooth and nail along the whole way to kill that bill. And they succeeded the first time with SB 731, but we would not give up. The family members did not want us to give up. So we kept fighting for them. And, I just want to uplift too, about Kenneth Ross Jr., who the bill's named after. Before Sergeant Michael Robbins murdered Kenneth Ross Jr., he had already shot three other civilians. And why was this officer allowed to continue on the force just to murder somebody else? That didn't make sense. And we've seen time and time again that when officers do indicate fire, which is very rare, all they were doing was getting bounced to another agency in a different city and continuing that same harmful behavior on other community members who are primarily black or brown. Black or brown. You don't got to take my word for it. You can look at any of these killings and see the statistics, see that. Courage, but the reason we got involved is we support a lot of family members, the Monterosa family, the Eric Saldo family, Mario Gonzalez family, who have also been, victimized by state violence. Now, I do want to list one of those as well because these family members helped SB2 get passed. And it's a slap in the face. It's a slap in the face to the family members who have their loved ones stolen from them. That the last minute that the key provision of the certification process is not being honored as the way we intended as we negotiate with the governor's office. This was a multi-year process. And we met with Post several times. We met with the governor's office several times and other stakeholders several times. Because we knew that in order for the certification process to work, there needs to be transparency. History has shown us time and time again that police cannot be trusted with policing themselves. That's a fact. That's a fact. And through the negotiations of the certification process, there was this multi-due process that was instituted that was law enforcement dominated every step of the way, except one. And we fought to get that in there. And this accountability advisory board that primarily has law enforcement on the board was primarily civilian led. And we should not forget that the police work for us. My taxpayer dollars, your taxpayer dollars, pay their salaries. So they work for us, they should be accountable to us. And so if there's a process for serious misconduct, we're talking about serious misconduct, right? So if there's accusations and there's evidence that an officer committed sexual assault, it's not uncommon. Domestic violence, it's not uncommon. Fabricating evidence, it's not uncommon. Or murder of a community member, the public should know about that. We should know about that. And if you're not doing any wrong, then what do you got to be worried about? Why do you want those records to be secret? That doesn't make sense. The public should have access to those. That was the intent. That's why we intentionally put that in the language. It's a shame. It's a shame that many of the family members that came to support SB2 in the campaign, they still have not received any justice for their loved ones. And true justice would be the loved ones be here today, but they're not. At the very least, these officers should not be on the force. They should be held accountable. And they're not. It's like, I do want to uplift the Monterosa family. Because Michelle and Ashley Monterosa really supported this effort. They came and testified. They came to the Capitol and testified for SB2. Because the brother was murdered, he was only 22 years old. Officer Jared Tron fired 5 rounds to the windshield of an unmarked pickup truck while Sean Monterosa was on his hands and knees, with his hands up, and was murdered. And keep in mind, this always has shown to me that 47 minutes before Monterosa was killed, He had just sent a text message to his sisters, asking them to sign a petition calling for justice for George Floyd. And he's murdered 47 minutes later by the Vallejo police. And it was the fourth time in 5 years that Jared Kahn had shot a person while on duty, including 2 shootings within 6 weeks. And this is from a Vallejo Police Department tradition where the officers paint the corners of their badges as a symbol that we murdered people. So this is the context for why SB 2, the Certification of Kenneth Ross Jr. Act, is so important. And I'm glad it was mentioned about the bad apple narrative. Because this wasn't about bad apples. This was about a bad system with bad roots. And so we knew that we needed to address the system of accountability, which is the certification process, not just attempt to hold individual officers and get them off the force, but to fix a system that is by design intended to protect officers who commit serious misconduct. They're protected. And that's why it keeps happening, because no accountability. Exactly. We need those records. And so we're not asking the governor, we're demanding that the governor, Newsom, you need to do what's right. You signed a certain bill because you agreed with the content that was in there. There's a reason you signed that. And now to come back, a year and a half later or so, to dismantle a huge piece of that bill, transparency piece, it's a shame. It's a shame. And then to do it through a trailer bill, at least when we brought this SB 2, we went through the public process. We went through public hearings. Because we know that that's the best way is to build trust is through transparency. Even through the certification process, even to get that implemented. And here we are today with the secret bill, the trailer bill. And we're demanding that not be implemented through a trailer bill. The families of those who have loved ones murdered, they deserve that. They do. And we're not talking about taking that out to protect officers. We're talking about taking that out because you're protecting officers who committed serious misconduct. Keep that in mind. You're protecting officers who have committed serious misconduct. Sexual assaults, murder, lying. That's unacceptable. So I just thank you for everybody showing up today. If the governor, if you sign this, this is not over. The families demand justice. And we know that certification process that does not have transparency is not going to be effective. It's not going to be effective. We need that transparency piece in there. We need those records to have, the public to have access to those records. Period. Thank you.
Protect SB 2, y'all.